Hi, my name's Tommi Autumn. I'm a photographer and cinematographer, and today I kind of just wanted to talk about self awareness and how you can use it to explore your identity artistically, as well as how you can make learning more efficient for you and how to be able to maybe get better at something faster and in ways that maybe you wouldn't have been able to without it. So, why do we care about self awareness, right? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. One is definitely just your personality. You want to be passionate, you want to care about things, you want to have hobbies, but those things might be difficult to figure out. And just asking yourself, okay, did I enjoy what I did? Did I not like this? How do I feel about it? Was it just boring? Or maybe it was really interesting. But also your identity artistically, just being able to know and be confident about what is your voice, what style do you shoot with, what's your lighting, what subject matter do you use, just different variables like that. That as an artist who's maybe just starting out, it can be very difficult to figure out those things. I'm in college at the moment, and I do see a lot of just different classmates. It's college, so some of them are out of high school, some of them maybe they're 30, 40. I've even seen some old people there too, and that's great. And something that I can recognize in a lot of those people is a lot of them just don't really have a great sense of direction in their art. A lot of them are trying to figure out their voice, figure out what style they like, their composition, all those technical details. And I find that a lot of them struggle just because they don't really know where to start. Or what will happen is they'll just shoot and shoot and shoot, and they won't sit down and figure out whether something worked or not, and they'll just keep doing it. It's like the definition of insanity. And that stuff can work, but it's slow and it's inefficient. That's kind of where the phrase practice makes perfect is a little wrong. It's more perfect practice makes perfect, but how do you make it perfect? Well, on a mental level, that's what I want to talk about with self awareness. I think it's also important because it can help you learn things faster. Like I said, if you're shooting things over and over and over again and you're not asking yourself questions about it, then you're going to do the same things over again. Maybe you did something really good, but you can't just figure out what you did and you can never do it again. Maybe you keep making the same mistake over and over again. Maybe you use harsh lighting and you just don't like the look of it. Those are all things that I think self awareness is really good at helping you figure out. And so I wanted to go into now, just how do you go about that, right? Well, I think it's important to establish before that having what's called a growth mindset. So I first want to say what the opposite of that is, which is a closed mindset. And so a closed mindset is pretty much, let's say you're doing a test and you failed. You failed miserably, right? What are you going to blame it on? Are you going to say, oh my God, I was unlucky today? Or maybe the teacher just didn't teach me that. Or maybe the test was just too hard, right? Those are examples of having a closed mindset because you're blaming it on other things. You're blaming it on things that are just chance, circumstance, things like that. And what you're doing is you're circumventing yourself from being able to get something out of it, learn something from it. And I think that's where having the opposite of it, a growth mindset, is really important. Just being able to say, okay, I did fail the test, but what can I learn out of that? And that's partially why, your teacher will grade you, They'll check which ones were right, which ones were wrong. Maybe if they're cool, they'll give you an explanation. But if you don't have someone spoon feeding you like that, then most likely you're going to have to figure it out yourself. And I think, even though you failed, even though you lost, I think you can still find something important. And if you can get anything out of that situation, then I think you won. You passed it as long as you can learn from it. And that's a really important topic that I just don't think people really understand super well. And so I just want to make that, a clear thing that, maybe you focus on. Maybe you do have problems with blaming things on others, blaming things on chance. Maybe you have a hard time saying, hey, I messed up, taking ownership and accountability. And this isn't about being a good person. It's just about giving yourself the most chances to learn out of something. You could just shrug it off and say, oh, it's okay, whatever, I'll do better on the next one. Or, oh, it doesn't matter. But, if it doesn't matter to you, then you're not going to get anything out of it. And that's why it doesn't matter. But if you can care about it, if you can give it the time and respect to just acknowledge maybe something you did right, maybe something you did wrong. Did you do a good job? Did you do a bad job? What was in your control and what was just out of your control? Because, there are things that you just can't do anything about it, but you don't want that to overshadow the things that you can do about it. And I think that's also an important concept to understand. And so that's kind of a bit about a growth mindset. It's really important for being able to accelerate your growth. Think about if you had just done test after test after test and you failed every single one of them, maybe it was for a reason. If you failed the first test, then ask yourself, why did I fail this, Maybe I just didn't study. Maybe I really just didn't understand the topic. Maybe you skimmed through the book, whatever. Just being able to acknowledge something that is in your control that you can change is everything. Because think about this, then maybe the next time you have a test, you're going to say, hey, I remember that I failed the last test because I just skimmed through the book. So then maybe you pay more attention to the book, take notes, whatever. And so now you're in the same situation. You were taking a test, but you remembered to fix your mistake from earlier. You didn't do what made you fail, and you focused on what can make you succeed. And now, let's say you succeed, you pass the test. Well, now you can say, hey, I did that, I actually passed that. And you don't need to say, oh, I just won it because I was lucky, or, oh, I just passed the test because I'm lucky. Of course you didn't. You passed the test because you studied for it. And just having that shift in mindset of, oh, this is out of my control. Even if it is out of your control, try to find something that is in your control and be able to change that variable. Because, really, that's all you can do. Focus on the things you can change and don't worry so much about the things that you just don't have control over. Because what are you going to do about it? You don't have control in it, right? And that's kind of the difference between a growth mindset and a closed mindset. So I invite you to just think about that, Maybe the next time you're doing a photo shoot, maybe the next time you're doing a film, a movie, something like that, just acknowledge maybe when things went wrong, when things went right. What did you do good? What did you do wrong? What things were out of your control? And what things are in your control? And so the next time you're doing a photo shoot and you're on a film set, you're going to say, hey, I actually remember that what I did was good. Maybe it was actually really good and it's why the shoot worked. Well, now you're conscious about it and you're going to focus on it. You're going to say, oh my God, I'm going to make this next shoot all about this topic. And then you do. And then guess what? You just took a step up. You turned a weakness into a strength. You didn't avoid it. You didn't excuse it. You acknowledged it and you worked on it. And that is the strength and importance of having a growth mindset. So I really hope that you can understand that and just think about it. And so going back to this topic of self-awareness, how can you be self-aware to allow yourself to learn and grow faster? And so I kind of talked about it with, asking all these questions, kind of assessing yourself. But, it really does fall on, you have to be self-aware enough to even ask the question in the first place. Maybe you're watching this and maybe you've never thought about things like this. Maybe you have. Maybe you just need a motivation to do it more. But especially for the people who maybe just haven't thought about it at all, that's where the self-awareness can be good, because you can watch all these YouTube videos about this and that and how to do this, but it almost turns into like, if you give a man a fish, they're full for one day. But if you can teach that person how to fish, well, now they can feed themselves for life. And I think that applies to your growth, your learning, being self-aware, just being able to think, ask questions, and notice things. Hey, I didn't like that. Or I did like that. This, I think, fits my style. Or I would never do something like that. Just thinking about things like that, asking your questions along those lines, you're almost having a dialogue with yourself. You ask yourself questions and you answer those questions, and maybe you just learn a little bit more about you that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that goes right into a good segue of your identity, your personality, and who you are artistically. I think a lot of people just don't have a good grasp of, this is my style, this is my composition I like this lighting, this is my subject matter. And just being self-aware of who you are, those things can trickle into your voice, your message, what you want to say with your art. And then you can do the whole growth mindset thing by applying, okay, I want my work to talk about mental health. Well, now you can be conscious about it, and every time you're doing a photo shoot, be like, okay, what are some ways that I can do this? And that's really going to be a game changer, especially if you're having trouble figuring out those things. I think it's easy when it's, 2 plus 2, it's always going to equal 4, right? But with art, with expression and identity, all those things don't really have a clear answer. And a lot of it is trial and error. And if you don't make the most out of that trial and error, then all you're going to do is waste time. Maybe you do get better, but maybe it takes years. And even if you maybe want to pick up a new skill or a new hobby, maybe completely unrelated from art, painting, photography, completely unrelated from those things, maybe you just want to learn about plants or something. All of those skills that we've talked about, all of those things can apply to everything else, Maybe you're saying, oh, that's too much work to learn that. Well, being self-aware, acknowledging your strengths, your weaknesses, learning something from every moment, just Making every single exchange and interaction an opportunity to learn. You're going to accelerate yourself from maybe taking 6 months to figure it out to maybe it takes 2 weeks. Oftentimes for me, a lot of my epiphanies kind of just happen in a moment. Obviously, it takes a lot of moments to get to that moment, and that's kind of what takes time. But just in the moment, it's usually just like well, I've actually never really thought about it. What if I thought about it like this? Or learning about yourself in some way. A lot of those things just happen in a moment, and it's going to be quicker than you think. But you need to make sure that you're giving yourself that opportunity to learn from it. Otherwise, you're going to take the test 50 times, you're going to fail it every single time. Or you can have that growth mindset. You can be self aware enough to acknowledge what went wrong and what went right. And you'll be able to take that test once. And maybe you do fail it. That's okay. But when you take it the second time, you are never going to fail it again. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully any of that made sense. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for watching. It's probably long. That's okay. I just kind of wanted to ramble about it. Maybe you get something out of it. Maybe you don't. But hey, I tried. Bye.